Hello everyone and welcome to another reminder that even though we have engines and we use engines on a daily basis to train, to solve everything, to prepare us for what's next to come in the chess world, we will never really be like engines, and we will never be able to play like engines. It's a game from the TCC, as you can see, TCC Cup 13, round 32, between two engines, both using NNUE, the efficiently updatable neural networks, the Leela LCZero and Tucano. And okay, there are different technologies that are being used for evaluating the moves, and I would really love to do a video like maybe comparing the top 10 different approaches that is currently being used, and why the engines are different and why they are of different strengths. But for this video, I would really like to focus on the actual game because it's just beautiful. It's whenever these strong engines play and they create such a masterpiece, of course, to them it's ones and zeros, but to us it's like something played in maybe 1858 and something that should remain immortal. Now let's check it out. Leela with the white pieces opens with pawn to d4, and these are predetermined openings. The first 6 moves have been predetermined, and the 7th move is the first one that the engine chooses himself. And they will play 100 games, 50 games, with white, 50 games with black, and then they each play the same opening, so they cover a whole variety of openings. So d4, and now knight to f6. I found the game. It was posted on Twitter by Matthew Sadler, and a user by the name of Mr. Lel tagged me and said, agadmator, you should check this out, and I did check it out, and I was very impressed. So d4, knight f6, c4, we have pawn to e6, knight to c3, and bishop to b4. Okay, the standard Nimzo-Indian, knight to f3, the 3 knights variation, and now the immediate knight to e4. We have queen to c2, putting pressure on the knight, pawn to f5, defending. Pretty sure Tal played something like this against Botvinnik in their World Chess Championship match. g3, we have pawn to c5, and now bishop to g2. Bishop to g2 being the first move the engine decided to play for itself. We have queen to a5, and now we reach a position that has never been reached before. Now with the queen a5 move, this is still a known one. None other than Vasily Ivanchuk played this in 1993 against Seaman Agdestein, and he castled in this position. He won that game. And while castles is one of the top moves recommended by the engine, Leela plays pawn to d5. And it is now, as of move 8, that we have a completely new game. Now, I'm going to cover some lines, although I will not try to overcomplicate it, because these two engines are much stronger than the engine I used to analyze these games. Maybe my engine can follow up if I allow it to crunch the numbers, maybe to depth 50, then it will not differentiate much, but it will still very different, during the choosing of candidate moves. But okay, d5, we have knight captures on c3, pretty standard move. You're probably thinking, okay, just b captures, and then after bishop captures, we're gonna block with knight to d2 or something like that. But no, Leela castles here. And okay, what is this? Knight back to e4. Leela is just done a full piece, and while this again looks like something your uncle might play, pawn to a3 attacks the bishop, and okay, now you think, it was merely a temporary pawn sacrifice, piece sacrifice, because we're gonna win the piece back, but not really. Queen a6, and now if you capture the bishop, you're gonna lose the rook on a1. So again, what's the idea behind the piece sacrifice? Knight to g5. Again, these moves are pretty hard to understand, but there will be a conclusion. And Leela here, as you can see, is rated 36-36, and the Tucano is rated 32-93. So quite a huge difference. It's as if Magnus was playing against maybe a 2500 grandmaster. So okay, knight captures on g5. We have bishop captures on g5, and okay, the bishop still hangs. Bishop to a5, and now pawn to b4. As it often is the strongest move. And now if you capture, then a captures, and the bishop is lost. You cannot defend, and then white will just have a better position, winning back the sacrificed piece. So bishop goes back to c7, and now look at this, pawn to b5, and look at this queen here. and this is only the beginning of black's suffering. Queen to b6, pawn to a4. We have a pawn to a6, no, not pawn to a6, of course, pawn to a5. You don't want to allow pawn to a5 by white. Pawn to a5, and now pawn to e4. And this is what I find the most interesting when engines play. Here we have Tucano rated 2293. If Tucano played any chess player in the world, including the absolute top players, like Magnus, like Hikaru, chances are the engine would win maybe nine times out of 10. I imagine maybe one game would be a draw, although it's very hard to say. But when you have a much higher rated engine, then it will just completely obliterate the almost 3300 rated engine. And also it brings something else to light. We blindly listen to engines. If the engine says something, this is great, then we take it for granted, and we even play it, and we never have any problems with it. But that's what we have to realize, and what I always mention when I show these strong engines playing. Doesn't matter if Stockfish said that this is strong. There will always be a stronger Stockfish that will say no, that's just a losing move. But okay, e4, we have pawn to h6, challenging the bishop, bishop back to d2, and now castle's king side. And now, okay, black is still up a piece, but how are you developing here? How are you developing the light square bishop? How are you developing the knight? Okay, you could consider something like pawn to d6, but then you block your dark square bishop in. How are you developing your rook? These are all questions that need to be answered, and there is no good answer to these questions. We have pawn to f4, e captures on d5 now, and e captures on f5. And now the problem is, let's say in the game d4 was played, but let's say you play d6. You want to free up the light square bishop. Then comes the bishop captures on d5 with check, and after king h8, f6, and black will never develop another piece. For example, rook captures on f6, rook 8 to e1, with the idea of rook e8 check. The queen is covering the h7 square, and if you defend, let's say knight to d7, then comes bishop to c3. And now look at this, rook f8, bishop captures on g7 with check, and black is just getting checkmated. King captures, rook to e7 with check, king to f6, or you go in the corner, and then you just get checkmated with the queen. King to f6, queen to h7, and there's no defense here. Whatever you try, let's say you bring the knight back, knight to b8, but doesn't really matter. Queen to g7 with check, king f5, and the g4 will be checkmate. So not the best. So in the game, d4 was played, but again, not the best. Bishop to d5 with check, king to h8, and now rook 8 to e1, fully developing. We have queen to f6, and now pawn to g4. Pawn to d6, trying to develop, although the only way to develop, look at this, is you can't develop the rook. The bishop is stuck here. This bishop nowhere to go. The knight maybe can come to d7, but what happens after d7? So there's nothing you can do to develop this. We have king to h1 even. And this is a fine, precise move. The idea being that if queen to h4 lands, you don't have to worry about queen captures and g4 coming with check, and then black is again without idea. So king to h1, just a very nice prophylactic idea. Bishop to d8, and now bishop to e6, offering a trade of light square bishops, which black should really welcome, because that bishop is doing absolutely nothing. But now after bishop captures and f captures, now you also have the passed e pawn to worry about. We have bishop to e7, now comes pawn to f5. And now look at this, with these three squares guarded by the white pawns, the rook and knight are never entering the game. I mean, if the knight cannot enter the game, the rook cannot enter the game. Maybe you can play b6 and rook a7, but again, no way to develop. We have queen to h4, and now rook to e4. We have bishop to g5, offering a trade of bishops, but just bishop back to e1. And now, what do you play? Queen to h3, now queen to e2. We have queen to b3, going after the queenside pawns, maybe trying to go for some counterplay with pawn to d3, but rook f3, keeping an eye on the d3 square. Queen to b1, now pinning the bishop, and king to g2. Bishop back to e7, and now rook back to f1, threatening some very nasty discoveries on the queen and maybe winning the bishop. So queen to b3, and now rook e to f4. The idea is now h4 is coming, the bishop controls h4, g5 is coming, and you will, blast through black's position like it's butter. So d3, trying something, queen to e4, and now knight to c6. Finally, Tucano says, all right, I admit my position is terrible. I have nothing better. I have to give up something to develop something. So, okay, Leela now has to take the knight. B captures, we have B captures, and now rook 4 to f3, stopping further advancement of the pawn and just preparing to win the pawn. So, queen to a2 check, rook 1 to f2, queen captures on a4, and queen captures on d3. We have pawn to d5, now rook to c2. We have rook 8 to b8, but it doesn't matter. King to h3, rook to b7, bishop to h4. Just offering a trade of bishops to remove one of the defenders of the dark squares here. So we can continue pushing. Bishop to f6, and now bishop captures. G captures. Black even welcomes this, as this paralyzes the pawns. Rook to g3, and now pawn to d4. Tucano also creates a passed pawn on the d file. Rook to e2, preparing to push e7, and now queen to a1. And already there is very little black can do here. I mean, there's nothing black can do pretty much for the entire game, but yeah, it still looks like there should be some counterplay, but there isn't. e7, rook to e8, and now queen to d2, going after the h6 pawn. So king to g7, and now king to h4, with the idea of king h5 and queen captures on h6. So queen to b1, and now just pawn to g5. Queen to b1, okay, you could still go for king to h5, but g5 is just game over. H captures on g5. Now rook captures on g5 with check, and the rook cannot be accepted. If you take the rook, then queen captures on g5, king h7, queen g6 check, king to h8, queen captures on e8 with check, and now well, pretty much whatever you want to do, but the simplest way to checkmate is this. Or you bring a rook into the game, doesn't matter. So after this check on g5, king to f7, and now rook to h5. The black king is now completely trapped. Rook to g8, and now rook to e1. Being precise to the very last, even though you don't need it, you could also just bring a queen into the game, and it's completely winning. But just to give you an example of how an engine evaluates a position, it doesn't care that, for example, after rook to h7 check, king to g8, and rook to h8 with check. Now, if you capture the rook, then queen to h6 check, followed by a rook captures on e8 checkmate. So you have to move the king back, and now rook captures, or even better, rook e captures on e8, and now after queen captures on f5, you will just win the queen. For example, rook e to f8 with check, king to e6, now queen to e1 with check, and after queen e5, there's rook captures on f6 with check. The queen is pinned, so king has to capture. Rook h6 check to win the queen, but you have to go to f5, and then rook to h5 will win the queen. So it doesn't help you. We will go back, and then, well, of course, the queen will be captured. Queen captures, king captures, and you will have a queen against the rook in a completely winning endgame. But, of course, Leela evaluates that there is even better than this. So rook to e1 is played, and there is nothing. Now, the idea is that without that queen captures an f5 move that we've seen in the line, that means that there will be no defense for black once the e8 queen is played. So here, queen captures an f5 right away, as there is nothing better, and now, of course, Leela just takes the queen. Rook to h8 with check, king to g4, rook to g8 with check, king to f4, and now you could resign, but I imagine they are programmed to play it out until checkmate. Rook captures on e7, rook to h5, and now rook to g7. Rook to h8, going for checkmate here. Pawn to a4, now queen to a5. Rook to e5, queen to c7 with check, king to g6, and now rook to g1 with check. Rook to g5 blocking, and now queen captures on c6. Now, of course, it seems like you could do it a little bit faster, but Leela is actually doing it as fast as possible. Rook to e7, rook captures on g5. We have king to f7, and now rook to h7 with check. King to f8, and now queen captures on f6 with check, rook to f7, and of course queen captures on f7 is checkmate. So imagine playing a game like this against a 3300 rated engine. I mean, that is, to me, that is unimaginable. But the fact that someone did it, Leela did it, makes it possible, and that's why we should always be weary about every recommendation the engine gives us, and we should always take the recommendation with not just a grain of salt, but with a like a huge plate of salt, as even though we cannot beat the engine, other stronger engines really demolish these engines that are basically overlords to us. And yeah, we should just because the engine says something doesn't work, try playing it against a human and see if it works. Maybe it works. So yeah, I always like to mention, for those who haven't seen my older videos, my father-in-law, when the first chess computers came, and when he got his first Fritz, and then Fritz told him, "Okay, this is much better. This is winning." He never believed him. He always tried to disprove him, and he would take back the move like 1,000 times until he finally beat Fritz, and it could take an entire night, but he would do it, and then in the end he would prove that the initial assessment was wrong, or so he says. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Bit of a different pace from the usual videos, but this is 3600 rated chess entity, so hope you enjoyed this. I don't show many of them, but when I do, it's a beauty. And yeah, let's see this move once again, as it's really move 8. I mean, d5 was played, completely new move, and here after knight captures on c3 just castles. Imagine, I mean, this really does look like something your uncle would play. So yeah, once again, hope you guys enjoyed it. I would like to thank Daniel Heist, GMD over GMG, Anthony Palumbi, Matthew Witten, and Kristen is the best wife for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos. Sarah, thank you for watching, and I will see you soon. Continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day. And it says without error there can be no brilliancy, but yeah, good luck spotting an error when a 3300 engine is playing. See you soon.